Great morning, everyone, and happy first day of September. Good morning, great morning. I am so glad that if you're watching, you are able to tune in, join with us for another Sunday morning broadcast here with us on YouTube Live, or maybe if you're tuning in, checking us out, listening via podcast. Thank you so very much for hanging out with us. We are here. Good morning, Angie. I see those from YouTube coming in, checking us out. Good morning, great morning. As you can see, we've done it just a little bit different. It is the first of the month, and we are literally making some changes, bringing something great to you, something new, something more developed and more ready each and every time we come and every month. I think every time you go into a new season, every time you move into a new space, that you need to do something new that reflects that you are aware that you are not where you used to be. You're not in the same mentality. You're not in the same space. Even if you are, change your pillow, do something that is going to give a new look, a new flavor, that's going to take out the predictability from your life or from your space. And I so wholeheartedly believe in making those changes, making those adjustments, and making those moves to settle and to situate you walking into a new tier, a new type, a new space in your life. And this being September the 1st, the first day of the month, you have access to another experience, to an experience that you have not had before, momentum that you haven't had before, expressions that you have probably or personally may not necessarily have been able to express or push out before. But as your months change, your time changes, your language also is going to begin to change. Your language and your thoughts and your patterns and your perceptions, all of that is likewise going to change. And so I want those of you that are tuning in, joining in with us live. We're literally bringing in our other community as well this morning. So they'll be watching and checking us out from another environment, from another space. And so they won't necessarily have an opportunity to see us while we are on YouTube live, but they will have an opportunity to hear us audibly and have something to listen to while they're on their way to various spaces. They're on their way driving, or if you're in South Florida, or if you're anywhere like I am and you are in preparation, or you're in travel, you're en route because of Hurricane Dorian. We want to make sure that we're praying for everyone in the path of Hurricane Dorian. We are here during the course of this weekend, and we want to make sure that we are prayerful about those who are directly in line of danger, those families, those businesses, those business owners, each and every person that will be affected, impacted by what's going on and what's happening with the elements that we cannot control. I want to look at Matthew 16, and I want to give you all an introduction. This month that God has given me to speak to you all, it's literally going to be dealing with everything pertaining to going back to school, everything that's dealing with any form of learning. And again, if you're tuning in from another medium, you cannot see us, but we're literally live on YouTube. So if you're not following us on YouTube, you can skip over to YouTube and you can check us out there live. It's really simple. You just go into the search bar and push "and you're welcome" right in the search bar. It'll pull us right up directly. And then there are those that are here that are in both spaces that can send them the link directly if they would like to look. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Good morning and God bless you, everyone. I'm seeing my YouTube person community talking with each other. I love to see you all, know you all are here. Ambassador Scott and Pastor Yanita, God bless you this morning. Let me jump right in because I've already been on YouTube and I want to give you the word and the message that he's given me for this month of September. This is going to be directional. It'll be educational. And now God has one voice. He has one sound. So you should be hearing and probably will be hearing refrains and rehearsals throughout the course of the month that should be reiterating this same theme, back to school. Matthew 16 and 13, this is going to help you. This says, when Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" And they said, "Some say that thou art John the Baptist, some Elias, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." He said unto them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered unto him, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood have not revealed unto you, but my Father which is in heaven." And he says unto him, "I say unto you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church," right? not another form. And if you follow with us with John, we have talked about the differences, and they are not just, there was not just one church or one type. So he said, upon this rock, I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And so what he's talking to him about here, he's talking about this divine revelation. This is what Peter has received. The first question he's talking to, and he sets up the tone, he has to talk to his disciples. Good morning. He's talking to his disciples. And in speaking to his disciples, the introductory question to them was, who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? The question for them is, I want to know how plugged in you are to the community. He needs to take them into another level, to another expression, and he needs to trust them on another level with information. And in order to trust them with another level of information, he has to find out exactly what type of misinformation that they're not only in, but what information are you associated with that would confuse your message about who I am. And it's not a problem or issue or a challenge to have your questions or to have your concerns, but it is a problem to have your concerns and to not be able to voice your concerns if you're a part of this team. And so one of the things that I really loved about the ministry of Jesus and his style is that he was very direct, and he understood that in order to be a teacher, you can't be a teacher and be silent. You can't be a teacher and pretend that you're not aware of learning challenges, learning curves, learning disorders, and just plain old ignorance. And the truth be told, people can be ignorant. I've been ignorant. You've been ignorant. Everyone at some point in their life has been totally ignorant. Maybe you were at 4, maybe 5, maybe 24, 25, 34, 35, 55, 65, 75, 1005. But at some point in everyone's life, there's a moment, there's a time when you just don't know. You don't know the facts. You don't know the information. Or maybe you are willfully and willingly ignorant because perhaps you have to be. There are subjective terms that bring persons and parties into ignorances that they cannot control. They may not even understand. Some prefer to be ignorant, or they have to be ignorant. So to pretend, in order for them to survive, they have to pretend that they don't know even when they do, which is another form of ignorance that has developed and don't even recognize or realize that there actually impossibly is a form of ignorance. So Jesus has to be not just a regular teacher. Jesus is a rabbi. And what that means in simple form is he's a master teacher. All right. He's the one that sits over teachers. And if you would think of it this way, he teaches teachers how to teach. And so because these are his disciples, which are getting ready to be his apostles and that are getting ready to move into another space, it is imperative that I know what's inside of you. And so what Jesus does, he has to first and foremost is find a really staple way of communicating a message that others can understand. And so he uses parables to tell stories. So he'll give a natural message or give a spiritual message by showing them a picture that they understand naturally. And he uses this message because he understands that even if persons' intellect levels are going to be on various levels, religious levels, educations are going to be all over the place. And Jesus says really clearly that even if your education is different, your acumen is different in this area, your influence is different, your parenting was different, your culture was different, your society was different, your buildup was different. One thing about people is everyone appreciates the cadence, the tone, the temperament, the tempo, and is familiar with basic storytelling. And so in order for him to be effective, he had to find a means that was universally accepted so that people would not be so totally unfamiliar. He didn't create the whole wheel. So he knows if I can't do anything else, I can tell a story. So you see biblical stories spread all throughout the Bible. I don't even know if they gave permission for their stories to be written or told, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Jesus understood that in order for me to get in to even begin to unteach, I have to provide a platform or a space that you're familiar with to make you comfortable and talk about issues that you're comfortable with, to expound on things that I really want to talk about, but I can't jump in and take you forward so fast without taking into accountability what you have been taught, how you have been taught. And so he uses this method of storytelling to draw the people in. You know, people are more prone to listen if they're really clear on understanding the storyline, identifying with the storyline, and or bare minimum, at least knowing the parties in a story, because now people want to hear it. But if you don't give me any information and people that I know, I'm going to be disinterested in your story. And then you end up losing everybody. So he was methodical. He was strategic. This month of September, I want you to be intentional, methodical, and strategic about the moves that you make. The reason that he talks in Matthew 13 or Matthew 16 rather to his disciples is because you're going to be my first order of service. You're going to be the persons that are here. It's not good enough that you're just disciplined. Discipline ain't good enough, right? Discipline means that you can follow the orders or that you can follow the rules. But here's the challenge. Jesus wasn't going to be here all day, and you don't need to have an influx or overhaul of parties that are just disciplined, because you'll be disciplined just doing what you were told to do, but not necessarily knowing or doing what you know to do. And so what he was trying to do is converge or try to find out, what are you going to do with the information after you have it? Because you can have information about God, you can have discipline, but just because you have discipline doesn't necessarily mean that you have belief. There are those that have relationships built and hinged right here in this time, in this culture, that Jesus has to come against. The idea or the thought is, all I need to do is be disciplined. That makes me a better believer. So example, if I'm a person that has foul language and I just like to cuss all the time, bleep you, bleep you, bleep you, that bleep, that bleep. So that's my language, and I'm around Jesus, I can discipline myself while I'm around him. But now when he leaves, if I'm only disciplining myself because you're there, not because I understand that I'm really not disciplined, I'm just following your orders, or I'm in between instructions, or I'm following that last instruction. And so what Jesus was saying is, it's not good enough for you to be just disciplined. It's a waste of your mind. It's a waste of your intelligence to just be disciplined, because what this will do is it'll create suppression of how you speak, how you communicate, and how you think. And this is clearly not what Jesus was interested in. So he tells them in 13 of chapter 16, he said, tell me what's on your mind. Who do men say that I am? Here's what he's speaking to him. Number one, I know that you have outside or external relationships, and I know there are conversations going on. The reason I know there are conversations going on, because Jesus has literally been providing solutions. People are being healed, set free. He is intentionally not only blessing people, but he understands that in blessing people in the community that others don't want to be blessed, because they have political ties, they have reason and rationale for not wanting people to come into certain knowledges or understanding. He understood that every time I move, there's going to be controversy. Everything I do, I'm creating enemies, and that's what success does. Success is going to make people become enemies with you that you would have never planned, never thought, never imagined. It'll be in your bloodline. It'll be on your street line, in your community line, maybe even on your pledge line, that individuals that cannot handle the success that God has placed on you will be the persons and parties that will create the most conversations around you and or surrounding you. And Jesus understood that in order to build a movement, not just a team, I need to know that the persons and parties that are on or at my table are not just at my table, but that they are also really on my team. And so this master teacher, this great teacher, this master teacher, he has to now show them or teach them. Verse 13, he says, tell me, I want to know about your connections. I need to know, what are they saying? So don't be so disciplined that you become pretentious and you become quiet. I'm not going to tell you what's happening. I don't want to hurt your feelings. So what they began to say to him is the honesty of the conversation. Some are saying that you are John the Baptist. John the Baptist was dead. So what they were saying is, your greatness, or what is on you, what's with you, and the things that are about you, this power that is on you, and the presence, the influence that you have, we've not even seen it. So we can only compare you to anomalies that we have experienced in times past. You are as close as any can even imagine or say. They have described your influence, perhaps. They have described your audience, perhaps. They have described how parties receive you, your greatness. But because the only name or the last name that they can associate with what's on you, or that's like what they see with you, is going to be the person who was the last most powerful. So some are saying that you're John the Baptist because their capacity can only go that high. We have not had anyone else to blow his record or to do something outside of who we've seen do it. So the only name we really can associate with right now is to say, you're like John. Then others said, the ones that didn't even check for John, or didn't know John, because John was out in the woods. And if you followed us last month, you can really tap into that a whole lot more. John's outside in another space. He said, but the others said, you are just like Elias. So you're just like this great prophet. And they associated him with that because of his miracles. They associated him because of that, because of his power. John dipped him in the water. John preached, he taught. He said, but then we're talking about the power side of you, because you can perform miracles and you do have power we can't deny, what we're going to associate with you then is to say you're just like this or you're just like that. And so Jesus goes down through them and they kind of think they're out of the clear. And then he asks them a challenging question, the most challenging question. I hear what your others say, the people that you're connected to that say, but they don't live with me. Don't walk with me, don't talk with me, don't know my spirit, don't know my heart. You know, we have been on boats together. We've been on trips together. We've come into cities together, left out of cities together. You've seen my actions. You've seen my activity. And if you don't know me by now, I hear what the others are saying, and I'm probably a little bit tickled by those that have external knowledge of me. But now the question is for those that are closest with me, for where I need to go, for what I need to do, I need to have an internal pulse check to make sure that those that are coming with me, that are on my team with me, that you are disciplined enough not only to answer or to ask what I'm speaking to you about, but I need to make sure that you have your own awareness. The reason that he's doing this is because he's getting ready to move with some excellent momentum. And the question that he needs to now ask for the disciples is, who do you say that I am? I need to know if you guys have a mind of your own, period, first and foremost. Because if you don't have a mind of your own, you will always be limited with the expressions and the type of persons that you have access to. So I need to know what's on your mind. And I need to also know that you have a mind. And so in order to know that you have a mind, I need to ask you a question because you're not in my company to be ignorant. You're in my company to be expressive. And if I can't trust you to be expressive as a disciple, I know I can't trust you to use your voice as an apostle. I can't trust you to use your voice as a prophet if you're afraid to use your voice. So I need to know that you can. I need to know that if you use your voice wrong, then when I hear you use your voice wrong, if you're my disciple, then I can teach you, because I'm a rabbi, master teacher, how not to speak ignorantly, how not to speak out of turn, and how to properly use your voice and use your tone. And so when he asked them, who do men say that I am? They're talking about John the Baptist. They're talking about Elias. And another says, they say you're Jeremiah. All right. They say you're this great prophet. You're saying Jeremiah. They're reaching in the Old Testament. Some are coming in the New Testament. They're all over the place. And it was a very simple question. Who? If you ever want to shake up what's around you and you want to really test the relationships that are around you and test the ability to see spiritually what's going on, the work, the mission, ask a simple question. Who? Who do they say? And who do you say? Who do they say I am? And who do you say that I am? Because you've experienced miracles. You've experienced this. These are the things that you've sent. He said, who do you say that I am? Verse 16 says, Simon Peter answers and says, he said, you are the Christ. You're the Son of the living God. Now, Peter's answer was so clear because this is divine. But Jesus responded back to him and he said, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonas, for flesh and blood have not revealed it, but my Father which is in heaven. He was testing something else with them. I want to make sure that outside of my voice that you can also hear, because if you're on my team and you can't hear for yourself, then the whole team is going to be in trouble. Because if I'm not here and you can't hear, then everything that has been built, everything that has been supplied, everything that has been funded, everything developed, everything that has gone into this, if you don't have a direct connection and you can't hear for yourself, then you are going to be in the wrong space. So Peter gets this revelation. The revelation that he gets, he said, we're going to build this upon a rock. We're going to build upon revelation. And what the revelation does, revelation, if you will, revelation comes to literally cancel whatever was concealed. So something concealed means that it's hidden. It's not present, not easily seen. It's obscure. It doesn't mean that it's not there. All right. It's just concealed. There are things that I have right now that are present that you probably cannot see because you're on this screen. It doesn't mean that it's not there. You just can't see it because it's concealed. But with the simple reach of a hand, what I'm able to do is reveal. So you see this? This is my coffee for the morning, right? This is revelation. This is when it is concealed. And so what revelation does is revelation brings to the forefront what you were not able to see just a moment ago. And so for those that are listening via audio, they just missed the revelation because they're not here on YouTube. But for those that are watching on YouTube, you just got a revelation that other people that are only audio, they're only able to hear. What revelation does, revelation will allow people that are in the same space, hearing the same word, hearing the same message, a part of the same dialogue. They can miss it because revelation will literally come so fast, so quick, that those that are not visual and can't see and can only hear will not even understand or really comprehend something that may have been concealed from them. And so what he's saying in this message is, he said, there are things that are right in front of your face. There are messages directly in front of your face. There are doors in front of your face, windows in front of your face, conversations in front of your face that you'll miss if you don't have revelation. What a revelation does, revelation comes to give you knowledge. All right. What knowledge does, knowledge that he's given you, knowledge is familiarity or an awareness, understanding of something or something by way of giving you some sort of facts, rationale, giving you data. This is what knowledge gives you. It is to know. All right. This is something that you may get through your experience. This is something you might get from the school of life. This is something you may come or get from your perception, or you may even get from discovering or get by learning. This is going to give you your knowledge. And what ignorance does, ignorance comes because you have a lack of knowledge. It means you don't know. It means you don't know. And so when Jesus is talking to his disciples sitting here, Jesus, he didn't have time for any ignorance. He doesn't have time for ignorance, because if you don't know, if you don't have the data, if you don't have the information and you're around me, then what's happening is you're subject to having questions and conversations that you don't have the authority or the information to be able to answer. And so if you can't give the answers to the people, this is going to affect numbers, because while they're saying, I'm John the Baptist, and others are saying, I'm Elias, and others are saying, I'm Jeremiah. If you don't know who I am, you cannot possibly effectively communicate to others about who I am or what I do. And so what I need to do is have an honest conversation with you and lead the conversation with you as a rabbi and say to you, I need to make sure that you know how to answer basic questions. This September, I want those of you that are watching, that are listening, that are in any leadership role, whether in your job, even if you're in some form of capacity of ministry, whatever your vocation is, if God is calling you to lead anything this month of September, these are the months to ask basic questions. Your promotion and what's going to happen with you next cannot happen without you having honest conversations. And those conversations are very clear. Well, Jesus was talking to them in Matthew chapter 16. He knew and he was aware that this was going to be such a dangerous stage. And before this time, for where he was and for what he was doing, he could afford to continue on without asking the hard questions. But in September, this month, and I want you to hear me, this month, if what you have is worth what you believe and what you say, you're going to have to be bold enough to ask those around you basic questions. And the only parties that cannot handle direct questions are those that don't have an intention. Watch this, an intention or a long-term desire to be in that space. And it doesn't mean anything bad, but Jesus was on a mission. And the mission that he was on was such that he needed to have certain questions asked. You know, last month, August, was literally the ending. It was coming out of summer, and you've come into a new transition. This back to school moment is literally when you are coming into a new grade. You're coming into a new space. What this means is you have graduated from the last level or the last place that you were on. And so if you just graduated from your last space, you need to make sure that you honor God by not repeating the same movements that you made in a grade you just passed, by repeating tests that you've already taken, you've already come out of, that you already got out. Some you may have escaped as an A student. Some you escaped as a B student. Some you escaped because you don't even know how you seed your way out of it. Some got D's, but still you passed. And so whatever the case may be, how you passed is not the conversation. The conversation is that you passed. And because you passed, and if you only passed by the hair of your chin or by the skin of your feet, if you've only passed that way, then you owe it to your next level not to repeat the mistakes you made last year. And even if you can't be an A student, you do have a great opportunity at the beginning, at the turn of the month, to be a much better student, a much better contributor to the educational process. And the great thing about going back to school is that on day one, everyone starts out with a clean slate. And as of right now, we're all A students on the first of the month. Can y'all hashtag that? It's the first of the month. The first of the month. And so these studio lights are hot. Another revelation you get to see. And so this process that he's speaking to the disciples about is who. I need to know not just that you are around me, because you being around me is not good enough. I need to know what your role is, and I need to know that you understand what my role is, because if you don't understand what my role is, then you cannot be a contributor into what I'm going, or to what I'm doing, or into what's happening, because you don't have divine revelation. All right. Peter gets the divine revelation. He's the one who Jesus responds to in verse 16. And he says to him, he said, you are, verse 16, he said, thou art the Christ. All right. He said, you are the Son of the living God. So not only does he hear in verse 16 that he answers this question, who, but in him answering who, Jesus is able to respond to him. He said, now I know that you have a direct connection. All right. You have a direct connection. You have a direct connection. You have a God connection. You have your own connection. And so when I'm able to hear this form of clarity, I know this form of clarity is not something that you can contrive or just make up. This is organic. And so when persons and parties hear this in September, what you have on you, what you have in you is organic. And when God gives you something organically, you have to be very clear that others that don't necessarily get that revelation and or that understanding, there are those individuals that may be challenged with the fact that you actually have a direct connection. And so when he says to him, he says in verse 17, he said, blessed are you. He said, you're blessed, Simon. Flesh and blood has not revealed it unto you, but my Father, which is in heaven. You're on earth, but you're hearing from heaven. In earth, hearing from heaven. And so the power of this and the beauty of this is so great because the Holy Spirit hadn't even been released yet. That's a whole nother lesson. I won't even go into it. But he says you have a connection and you can hear. And not only can you hear, but now you're also saying. Hearing it is one part of your assignment, but then being able to say it. And as you move and as you mature, things that you used to hear that you wouldn't say for fear, you were scared, you didn't want to intimidate the others around you, you didn't want to shake up, you didn't want to fight. Because there are those of you that are on this list watching that are listening right now that are being healed because you said something. And as a result of you saying something, you've been in warfare for the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years in your city, in your town, because there are those that were upset and or challenged because you had a direct connect. And there are those that, if you're not careful, that would rather make you think you're crazy than instead of confirming it. And so Peter, he says to him, Peter, you're blessed. Even as a rabbi, as a master teacher, when you look at how masterfully Jesus handled the social issues, even within that space, he understood that you have 12 disciples here. And if one person out of all of these is the one that heard, someone in that issue, in that circle that didn't hear is going to have a challenge, because when persons and parties are ignorant, there is no level of ignorance that they will not stoop to, because they don't have knowledge to even recognize or realize that being jealous of someone that has keys and solutions for your life is no one to be jealous of. It's just that this person got a revelation of something that was concealed to you. Doesn't make them better, doesn't make them further. It just means they had a revelation. And when God gives individuals or men or women revelation, it just means it was Peter's turn that time. It doesn't mean that they're better than you or bigger than you, or that you hail Peter, that you worship Peter, that you adore Peter, that you bow down before Peter, that you take off your crown in front of Peter. It just means that Peter got an instant revelation. Something that was concealed was revealed, and Peter spoke. It doesn't necessarily even mean that the others didn't get it. It means that Peter was bold enough to say it. And so Peter, his confession, his revelation, it also matched up with his ability to then open his mouth, because there are those that have revelation, but you're scared to open your mouth. I don't want to cause problems. I don't want to cause confusion. I don't want. And so because of this, it becomes challenging. There are those that get revelations, but if psychologically, if there's a fear that makes you close your mouth, then guess what's happening? I got to give that revelation to somebody else. For all I know, it passed through from Peter, passed over to John the Beloved. But if all John the Beloved wanted to do was lay on his bosom all day long, then John the Beloved wasn't going to be able to communicate the message or even say it, because when there's ignorance present, there are those that will rather be in worship when it's time to be in word, or those that would rather be talking when it's time to be silent, being silent when it's time to speak and time to talk. The question on the table is who? Someone needed to answer it. And so you need someone like a Peter, who's a mouthy person, who doesn't have the fears, who does not have the reservations that others may have. And so because of this, Peter is the one that jumps out. And so Jesus said, you're blessed. What am I blessed for? Why am I blessed? Part of what blesses me, Peter, it blesses me that you heard it and that you said it. All right. You guys hashtag that in the comments so I can see you guys on YouTube and acknowledge. Bless you, Valerie. God bless you, Laverne. He says, what I need you to do now is I need you to use your mouth and use your revelation, because you can see it. But if you don't say it, what's the purpose? You're so disciplined being my disciples that your discipline is now becoming problematic, because you think silence is discipline, and silence is not always discipline. It takes discipline to speak and to know when to put a period at the end of what you're saying too. So Peter says what he has to say in verse 16 and puts a period at the end of it. It's a discipline to control what you say. It's a discipline to say what you need to say. And so Jesus talks to him and said, my Father has given you this revelation. He said, you're Peter. And he said, upon this rock, revelation, upon this rock, he said, I will build my church. What rock? It'll be a rock that's going to require you to speak out. All right. Speak out. This revelation, I'm going to build my church, he said, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. What are the gates of hell not going to be able to prevail against? They won't be able to prevail against a church that not only has a divine revelation, you have your divine revelation, but you also have revelation that you need to speak about information that you've been divinely given. Because if you don't speak about the divine information that you've been given or released, then you're going to cause a whole nother challenge. And so he says to them, he says this about to Peter in verse 16 or verse 18. He says to Peter, his conversation is with Peter. And after that conversation with Peter, he says, I'm going to give you the keys of the kingdom. I'm going to give you solutions, right? I'm going to give you solutions. He said, in the solutions that I give you in verse 19, he said, whatever you're going to bind on earth, he said, it's going to be bound in heaven. I just gave Facebook a revelation. He said, whatever you're going to be bound on earth is going to be bound in heaven. And whatever you loose on earth is going to be loosed in heaven. So he says, I'm going to give you this revelation. And with these keys, I'm going to give you all these solutions. There are things that are going to happen in earth that you don't have to take. You don't have to accept. He said, so when you lock something up down here, because now that I know you have a direct connection and you have direct revelation, I want to teach you how to use this revelation more directly, more intentionally. And I want to make sure that just because you have revelation, that I don't leave you with revelation and don't give you information about the revelation you just received. Because just because you have a revelation does not mean that that one-time revelation is going to keep you or sustain you to the point where you don't need to go back to school anymore. So I have to even teach you how to manage revelation. And so in teaching you how to manage revelation with Peter, he tells Peter, I'm going to give you these keys, because now I have to give you something because you have revelation, so that you don't just get revelation and you let things roam around in your life that should not necessarily be roaming around in your life. Now that you have revelation, now I need to give you keys. What are keys for? They're solutions, but they're also for mobility. They help to lock doors. They help to unlock doors. Without a key to a closed door, you can't get in. So he said, I want to give you keys so that now that you're in this revelation, you have the revelation, you're in a new space with new doors and you don't know what's behind the door. So I need to give you the keys to the right doors so that now while you're in revelation, you can understand and know what spaces within the revelation you can go into. Because if the key fits in that door, this gives you more access to more information. Here's what you're going to do with the information. He said, when you get this information, there's some things you're going to see now in your space. And the things you're going to see in your space when this door is open, you're going to have more revelation, you'll have more insight, and you'll be able to see things that are running around that need to be tied up. So he says, here's what you're going to do. When you see things that are running around in your house, that may be running around in your health, that may be running around in your mind, instead of letting thoughts run around idle or run around crazy or drive you crazy, you need to go ahead and catch it. You need to arrest it. So when you see it on earth from this 19th verse, I want you to bind it. Don't let it go. What does ignorance do? Ignorance will have you letting things go that you need to lock up. All right. And so what's going to happen in the course of this month, and I want to give you this instruction this month, stop letting things go that you need to stand in front of, face, and lock up. If you let it go, you're letting criminal activities go. And this is what he was saying to Peter. This is what he's saying to the disciples. Upon this rock, you're going to have to start binding up stuff and loosening stuff. All right. Don't let stuff go that needs to be caught. And don't you stop catching things and stop catching things that need to be loosed. You need keys. Prior to this revelation, you had a whole lot of stuff going on. And those of you that are watching or that are listening, you're having some things going on in your life, in your space right now. And you're like, God, I'm sick and tired of this. And God said the reason you have to keep dealing with it is because instead of addressing it, you say, God, you deal with it. You handle it. And he says, no, I've given you the keys. You have the authority. You have the power to lock it up. Lock it up. He said, whatever you bind on earth, it's going to be bound in heaven. So if you don't bind it in earth, if you don't shut it down, if you don't stop it, I introduced you to it so that you would know how to tie it up. And so if you don't tie it up, the reason that it's loose in your life is because you've not used your keys. And so he says to them, upon this revelation, you have to start stopping stuff. And so to not stop it is a show and an indication of further ignorance. It's ignorant to be dealing with something for the past 4 years when you could have locked it up 3 years ago. And so you're like, Lord, deliver me, set me free. I already gave you the keys, but you have to use them. And in order to use them, you can't be fearful. And the reason that fear comes in because you don't have the knowledge. So information is going to cancel that fear. It's going to give you that knowledge. It's going to give you keys. And then it's going to place responsibility right back in your hands to lock up what you could have locked up. So the deliverance is not only at your disposal, it's in your hands, and it's at your discretion. September 1st, this month, this time is going to be a moment. It's going to be time and space where it's your responsibility. It's your job to bind it up. Now, when he's talking to him in 19 about whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. When you look at it and it says to bind it up, it's literally saying to use even an aggressive force. So you don't tie it up loosely. The things that have gone on, the things that have been challenges that have been happening in your life, spiritual warfare that you have been in, you don't tie it up loosely. All right. That's not how you do it. He speaks to you and the words are really aggressive. It says, take it. All right. Bind it up. He didn't say kidnap it. It's yours. The power or the reason that it's in your life, it's not because God wants to torture you. It's because God wants to provoke the leader in you to have to do something. And see, when I say have to do something, you will have to go from the space where I don't want to do anything. I don't want to say anything. And God will continue to have you right there. And he will make it so that you have to, because now you have to choose between you, your emotional health, your dreams, God convicting you, bothering you, and you letting something go. So he's saying, I need to pull you as a leader out of being a person to be afraid of confrontation. Because if you're going to be afraid of confrontation, you're going to get whooped by devils, demons, and stuff, because you will not bind it. So he says there will be an aggression that you can't even resist. And what God is doing, he's made you more aggressive. He's made you less tolerant. And if you're not careful, you will have those that don't have a direct connection telling you that you have to change your temperament. You have to change your tone. You have to be quiet about this. And that is a lie from the pit of hell. Jesus came to them and he said, part of your ignorance is you think that I just need you to be disciplined and I need you to be stable and I need you to be like everyone else. But when you really look throughout those scriptures, you will see the variety that Jesus is using throughout the Bible, like David. God forbid if David decided to just be peaceful and disciplined and never fight giants and never fight Goliath. If he had maintained that posture when everyone said, be peaceful, don't fight, the blood of Jesus. Can you imagine the conversations about David when David had to go to the forefront, ready? People had prejudged him because of his look, because of his appearance, and because of his outfit. And literally, when he stands there, he has to literally, as an anomaly, prove that not only am I anointed, but I'm a warrior, and that God has even deputized and authorized me to fight this type of way for the whole nation of my people, for Israel. And David had to understand and recognize, if I'm here being quiet, being silent, or suppressing the fighter that God placed in me, then giants will be in spaces and in lands longer than they're supposed to. And if the nation understood his assignment, they would have backed him and supported him, because what David's fighting did is prepared the way for the worshipers to come and just lift their hands. Hallelujah, glory to God. We bless you. We love you. We adore you. But without all of David's fights, there would have been no temple built by Solomon. So you have to understand that there is a continuum of relationships that go in. And so we have to stop killing those that were assigned to say and make bold statements and declarations out of the 12 that the 11 cannot say and or state. And so September is going to be a month where you might seem more aggressive and more intolerant, but it's intentional. These are going to be emotions and feelings that you need to embrace. God will have to use this to isolate you, to cause you to be more focused, to be more intentional, because this is going to be part of your training all month long, because your focuses are different. You're not in summer, you're back to school. So you have homework, you have schoolwork, you have a future. And for those of you, if you're like me, when you grew up, you know, you have to focus in on your books and on your schoolwork and things like that. Focus requires a different level of sacrifice. It's going to require a different level of communication, and it's going to require you to literally stay out of spaces that you were in, because you no longer have the luxury of leisure. And y'all just hashtag that. I don't have the luxury of leisure. I don't have the luxury of leisure time. And so for those that may think that I'm being different or acting different, I'm being busy. I have a mission to accomplish. I have an assignment I got to finish. I have things that I have to do. And a huge part of that, and no parts of that, is going to involve those who remain, who have decided to remain and or to stay negligent or to stay ignorant. And so John's message, as I get ready to just shift on out of this space, his message, or the message in Matthew for each and every one of us, is there's going to come a transitional moment. The transitional moment where the questions become simpler and simpler. You know, and anyone is trying to come in your space with a whole lot of hard questions. No. This is a basic question. Matthew 16's question was a simple one. And the question simply, for those that are writing on any space you're in, just hashtag that who. That's it. Who? Can you answer the basic question? Who? Who? Who do men say that I am? What are they saying about the quality, the caliber, the excellence, the tone, the temperament? Who? That's a really basic question. Who do they say that I am? Who? And there's nothing worse than walking with someone, talking with someone, praying with someone, and they still have so many questions. How long do I have to be with you? How long do I have to prove? How long do I have to convince you? Jesus needed to make sure that I need to remove ignorance out of you, so that no one is in my space, that at bare minimum, you should not be ignorant, because I'm rabbi, I'm master teacher. These disciples didn't just get lessons when he was teaching the masses, they got them in private. And when they were in private, the question he asked them basically was who? And such a simple question, it confused so many people. Who? 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 Religious leaders, people in the community. Who? And this is how Jesus literally goes out and picks those disciples. I want to pick you that are fishermen, and that you who have not had your minds full up on all of the other pieces and parts that will contaminate and corrode. And a basic question from a non-basic teacher was who? It was a question that anybody could answer on any level, educationally, vocationally, didn't matter where you came from, how you came from there. It was a question of who. Can you tell me, not what I mean to you, he said, but tell me who I am. You've eaten here. You fed 5,000 fish. You've seen all the miracles. Who do you say that I am? And when he tells this to Peter, it says Peter goes on to them, and it says from that moment on, he starts to teach his disciples on a whole nother extreme. God is going to have you in a space and in a place where now what he's calling you to do is, I want you to know, because listen, I already know what people are saying, and I know that you're connected. I need you to know that I do know that this isn't my first rodeo. And the more mature you get, the older you get, the more developed you get, you understand. I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and she said, you know, Daddy, she was rushing me, say, come on, come on, come on. We're watching TV. She didn't like to watch TV with me. So she says, because I keep rewinding. I'm like, oh, this is good. I need to see this again. So I'm a rewinder. I'm a boom, 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 boom. If you talk while I'm watching the movie, I need boom, 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 boom. That's the penalty. If you don't talk while I'm boom, 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 that's what I do. So she says to me, Daddy, you're taking too long. And I said to her, you know, I got you by several years. I won't say how many. I said, but you are behind me, and you'll always be behind me because you're younger than me. So every place that you've been, I've already been there. So you will always be behind me. So I will always be waiting on you. So if you can't wait for me for another 10 minutes, then there's a huge problem, because all I'm doing is waiting on you for the rest of your life. I'm waiting on you to turn 15, waiting on you to turn 16. You'll be learning lessons that you have been taught by your mama, by your daddy, for the rest of your life, growing into revelations and knowledges that you may have been frustrated by as a child. But the older you get, the more you start understanding. And when you have your children, you'll be saying and repeating some of the same lessons because you're constantly growing into the space that I was. So in our conversations at times, it's so funny and listening and talking, because guess what? I have been where you are. You have not necessarily been where I am. So you're constantly going to be waiting. And so there are moments and times in even talking and communicating with those that are coming that I have to be cautious not to hurry up and give her a lesson that she needs to learn without her having the expression and the experience of learning what she needs to learn for herself. So I can't drop revelation on her based upon my experience, because if she's not experienced, it won't create a discipline within her. She just does what I tell her not to do because she has disciplined herself enough to know I'm in this house and I know my daddy crazy. And so that discipline, but then there's a separate form of knowledge that there's some things I can't protect you from as much as I would love to and try. And so the lesson and the moral of that story for my child or for my daughter is, listen, what I need to give you and what I have to give you is what I have to give you. But then there's some spaces also that you're going to come into on your own that is going to create your knowledge and your experience that I may need to eat off of later. And so I was saying and sharing with her, is because of this, you become more frustrated. The older you become, you can become more challenged, particularly if you're not a teacher or having that level of patience. And in not having that level of patience, what you can easily do unintentionally is you can end up messing up the trajectory or the path or the pattern of someone else's space. And so when Jesus asks them who, he gives them a basic question on the level that they can understand, but he also hits a soft fast forward on them. Let's get to the real nitty gritty. I already know what your answer is going to be. So I'm not asking because I'm confused. I'm asking because I need you to overhear your answers. And I need you to be clear that you can't even answer basic questions. And if you're clear that you can't answer basic questions, then you should have a hunger and an appetite for the teachings of a rabbi to make sure that you're informed. So that as you're going out teaching, as you're going out sharing, that you're not giving out information or education that is baseless, that is uninformative, that is not loaded with knowledge, data, and or correct information. And so in order for him to do it, he had to make sure that he knew what was in them, and he had to make sure that they were also clear and knowledgeable about what was in them and what was not, because this is going to help him develop his curriculum for these boys that he had to place back in school. And this curriculum, he furthers out throughout Matthew, teaching them, showing them, and instructing them. And in order to do it, I need to make an honest assessment and find out what your spiritual IQ is. And we're going to start with a basic question. Who? Right? Who? And there are those right now. God's not asking you hard questions. He's not talking to you about hard things. He's talking to you about simplistic matters, simplistic issues, basic questions, the basics. And this is what he's doing, taking you right back to the basics, where before it got so crazy. And now everybody has a revelation. The moment someone gets a revelation, everyone jumps on the revelation. And you can have revelation and still be ignorant, because if you're ignorant and don't have teaching and don't have a base of information and or knowledge that is correct, every revelation you'll end up jumping on. And what has happened is people have made careers. People have created so much manipulation based on how they have now tried to dominate and or control the sphere of revelation. What Jesus talked with Peter about, their keys, even in Revelation, there are doors. So there's government in Revelation. It's dangerous to follow and to jump on revelation without government, because anybody can say the moment they say, this is a revelation. This is revelation. And people have sold revelation, and they sold revelation that has no information. So the revelation today, God gave me a revelation, and God told me that we have to stay in the house for the next 8 days. God gave me a revelation, and God told me that was my husband. God gave a revelation and said that was your wife, and you still ain't married them, and they still ain't married them. And confusion is broken out because there's a revelation with no government. And what individuals have understood and recognized is that when there's ignorance, any form of ignorance, and there's a lack of teaching, you even have to be careful about so much of this. You preaching, it gets you so emotional. You know, everything you hear, everything, it pulls on emotions that feel good, and it gives us a different type of euphoria, a different experience. But preaching without teaching doesn't give you message. It doesn't give you content. And so what ends up happening is that without this form of teaching, and someone says, I have a revelation, you jump on revelation, because if without teaching, you don't even know. So when they understand that you're not in a format or persons that are not allowed to, or in environments where they're typically used to and or allowed to ask honest questions like Jesus was talking with his disciples, this was a pattern and a norm. You should be able to ask questions with a rabbi or with a teacher. But when someone gives you a revelation and you can't ask questions and you don't have a way of learning or developing, then guess what this does? You can be controlled and misled with revelation, because anytime you have questions or concerns, all the person that doesn't have information has to say to you is, it's God. It's a revelation and it's God. Well, Jesus was with Peter when Peter got a revelation, and he confirmed with him that his revelation was in fact of God, and he has to speak within that revelation and said, now there's still government here. Any revelation that has no scriptural government is not a revelation from God, no precedent. And so he has to tell Peter, you're going to have to be careful with revelation in an age of information, because anyone with information or anyone that is committed to giving out misinformation has no problem or no challenge giving out false revelation. And so Jesus had to make clear that there's divine revelation and then there are natural revelations. Natural, I'm going to make it very simple and ask you who. Spiritually, I'm going to confirm it and tell you that the revelations that you have are not revelations that are loose revelations. These are not revelations that are going to scare people, put people in a tantrum, or have them running around going crazy. But the revelations that you do receive are not revelations that are stupid, that are dumb, or that are ill-informed, or a revelation that should be or could be otherwise mismanaged. The doors and the revelations that I'm going to give you are revelations that are going to make sense. These are not revelations that are going to make you and or God seem schizophrenic, or that God speaks out of both sides of his mouth. So any revelation that makes it seem as if God is doing multiple things in multiple spaces that have nothing to do with anything that he has ever said is definitely not a revelation. And people have built meetings and conferences and brands and thoughts and businesses off of revelations from people, and had folks follow them and enable, because they have not had information to realize that the revelation was a revelation without government, and it was a revelation that had nothing to do with the source of where it was cited that the revelation came from. And so Jesus's conversations with the disciples was very clear. You all have power. You have discipline, but now you need to have revelation and understanding about the spaces you'll go into, so that you're not manipulated with random, loose revelation. And all of this literally had to be taught. He had to come through all of these areas, all of these spaces, all of these personalities, all of these temperaments. You have Peter, who's a cusser, they say. You have all of these other persons and personalities. You got to come to the persons that are sensitive, the ones that are sarcastic, the ones who are pessimistic, the ones that have various personality types, and you got to teach them all. All of these people that you have created need a lesson from the rabbi, and it's your job to instruct, to teach, to maneuver. This back to school session, all September long, for all of you that are going to be a part of this, you're going to come on Sundays. I need you to make sure you got your book bags, your pens, your pencils, all of the things that you need to hang out with us all month long. We are doing everything back to school, and no subject is taboo. Thursday nights, you're going to get that newsletter that's coming in. So if you've not signed up for our newsletter, make sure you get that, because on Thursday nights, we'll be going live in the dark room. For those of you who want to know what that is, we'll be doing the dark side. So everything's going to be dark. And I want to make sure very clear as to why we're on Thursday nights, and it's 9:00 p.m. because there are a lot of people that come in from different coasts. And as you guys really know, I do so much in different spaces and different time zones. So because of that, 9 p.m. is going to be great. So those in the U.S. that are asleep, go to bed. You can watch in the morning. Those on another coast, it's 6 o'clock in Cali. It'll be 9 p.m. here. I want to talk at night anyway, so that way we could talk about things that you may not necessarily catch me talking about during the day on Sundays. But that audience is going to need a different dynamic, and I'm here to give that to them. So the dark side will be on Thursday nights, and we're going to explore the conversations in ways that we can talk about in that setting, and it's going to be dark. Those sides of you, those sides of me, that others, if they can be careful, if they wanted to, would say this is dark, etc. These are going to be the sides we're going to show how God can use each and every side of your personality, of your temperament, of your experiences to help develop you, not to cripple you, but to help develop you, to help sharpen you, to help fine tune you, and to help have conversations that other folks are really, really scared to have. So I'm really excited about these Thursday nights that are coming out. You'll be able to get that information. We also have a weight loss challenge coming up, and I need you guys that are in here trying to do it to get it done. We have television coming up. We have some tours that we have coming up. in other countries. You'll be able to hear about where we're going to be making our moves coming up as well. And even for those of you who would like to travel with us, we're going to open up that forum for you as well, who may want to meet us over in these other countries. My assignment for right now is going to be very, 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 very different. Very, very different. So we're going into a lot of new spaces and covering into some new territories. So for all of those that want to be a part of that and want to be connected and interconnected, it would behoove you to get on board and stay on board now. We're going to go super fast and super quick. Those of you who would like to sow a seed, if you want to do it online, you would like to sow a seed, you're asking how you can sow a seed online. Listen, we need you to help and to contribute and to sow and to do whatever it is that you can do to be a blessing to us, not just listen, rob information and run away with it, but I want you to also be a blessing and let us know that you're here. Let us feel you. Let us see you, your support. You can send those seeds. If you want to go onto our website, you can send a donation directly to our website. And for those of you who are asking the Cash App information, it's just $, and you're welcome. Very simple. And you can send a seed in there. Nothing is too small. Nothing is too large. We take cards, we take MasterCard, Visa, American Express. If you ain't got nothing but credit card, cash is the best. We have mail if you'd like to send checks in. We are receiving it, and we would be so tremendously blessed if you would remember us. Again, also in your prayers, we want each and every one of you to remember those that are in the line, the direct line of Hurricane Dorian. You know, it's light here, but we have put up all of our shutters all in the house, and we are sitting here. I'm literally down here in Florida, and the storm is supposed to come directly to 10 miles away from where I live, right here, right on the water, right where we are. And so I want us to just remember all those who are dealing with Hurricane Dorian, that are dealing with, that are in running and pandemonium and fears and all of those different situations and those matters that are going on. So make sure you do that. And if there are prayer requests that you have on Friday nights, for those that are just plugging in, this is your first time. Thank you for my new subscribers. I see you subscribing for new. And those of you who are watching regularly, make sure that you share this link with someone. Share it in your family, in your community somewhere, so that you can help us. We got a new background for September, so if y'all like it, you can let me know we did something, and then we'll switch it out again. But you can now have an opportunity to follow us, to connect with us. Not only should you do it, it is a great idea. It's a God idea. It's a smart idea. It's a great investment. God is building out new spaces, new territories, and making new connectivities. And what you need to do is be bold, be intentional about your next move, about your next assignments, because you can pull out from what you put into. But if you don't sow anything into it, if you don't put anything into it, there will always be limits on what you're able to pull out from it. And so these spaces that are a blessing to you, be a blessing to others. If you have those prayer requests, you have those needs. And also, you know, I've closed out my schedule for the summer, but I believe that this fall, all of that will be opening up again, so you can have access to do that. We do have a process, so just follow that process. It's very simple. And for those who want those interviews and different things you've been asking or inquiring about, August was a month of building. It was a personal month. And so this next month, we are having to really service the communities. I can be an introvert at times, you know, so at times I can be very recluse in building. Nonetheless, for what God is saying and what God is doing, I got to probably come out and see more people than I pretty much want to. So since I'm going to do it, we're going to be very intentional, very focused with it. So get it in now while I'm feeling like it. To the glory of God. I look forward to seeing you all again Thursday night. Don't forget, this Thursday night, we are going to be on Facebook Live. We're going to come back on YouTube with The Dark Side. It's our intro. So make sure you're here, because I promise you, it's nothing that you want to miss. Thursday nights, and then again on Friday night, 12 o'clock a.m. That's literally, we do our prayer every Thursday. So if you're on our website, if you're on our app, you'll have that information for those prayer lines, for those calls, and you'll be able to plug in with us and see us several times a week. So make sure you get a hold on that, hop on that schedule, see us there, be with us there. Make sure you share, talk about what you've heard, what you've learned, and where you've heard it. Help us get our message out there. Help us get our message to the world. Help us get a message of change, a message of reformation and revolution that is coming to you and is also coming through you. Thank each and every one of you so very much for everything that you have done, everything you did. Thank you for the seeds that are coming in. Thank you, Apostle Ambassador Scott. Thank you so much. Thank you for those who are sowing. God bless you. God bless you, and God bless you, and God bless you some more. For those of you that are going to be on this weight challenge, let me see. Lift your hands if you're ready to come on this weight challenge with me. You ready to do it? Let me look in the comments on YouTube. On YouTube, on Facebook, raise your hands if you said, I'm ready to be on this weight challenge. It will be a cash prize giveaway of $500. So let me go ahead on and see. I want to challenge you. If there's some of your friends that need to be on it, you can tag their names, whether on Facebook, on YouTube, whatever it is. If they're into it, if they're in it, and you know, hey, this is something that we need to do together. We're going to get healthier. You'll see us shrinking, coming down together. And if that's something, Belita, thank you. I see one. I got one. Who else is there? Who else is there? I believe that when we do things together, we'll have greater success. And so I want to make sure that I catch all of those who want to plug in. Raise your hands. I see you, Val. I got you. I got you. Angela, raise your hands. Belita, Angie, Val, I'm watching you. Your hands are lifted. I got 3 of them. I'm in it. You in it. Me, you. Who else is here? Val, I see you. I see you. I see you. So for those of you that are committed to do it, and even if you're saying, look, I know I ain't gonna win, it doesn't mean that you have to lose out or leave out having a form of accountability. So meet us in there. We're going to do this together, and we're going to get healthier together. That is going to be the goal, to become healthier individuals. I want you to live. I want you to be around, because what's point is God opening up doors and opening up opportunities, and then you're unhealthy when God does it. So we're going to do that together. So if you're a part of our And You're Welcome family, our And You're Welcome community, I want each and every one of you to be a part of this. Find somebody. Don't be scared. Be intentional. Be bold. Hey, let's do something together. Let's make this thing work. Belita, I see you. Val, who else? Pastor Wright, I see you. I see squares. I can't see the thing. I don't know if that's your hand too. We getting in it. Whether you need 5 pounds, 10 pounds, or whatever the case may be, I want us to do this together. And I want us to look up, and I want everybody to look up and say, boom, bow, holistically, God meeting and measuring those needs and concerning himself with us, and us showing our concern and our desire to stay healthy, to stay alive, and be around for our children, our children's children, or whatever it is we decide we want to do. I want to see you for the next 50 years, so I don't have to learn and be scared trying to figure out how to trust new people, how to like new people. I want all of my old ones and all of my new ones that I plan to grow old with to be around for a long time. So if you like me and you love me and you don't want to die early and have me out here being isolated on someone's island because I don't want to learn new people all over again and I need to be recluse, then we can end our relationship now. However, for those that want to help and be more focused on your health and stick around, I want us to do that together. So thank you. I see you, Marilyn. God bless you. 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 And y'all make sure all these hands that are lifted, I want to see you in this room. So if you don't see the hands lifted in our other groups, et cetera, we'll be collecting those. If you don't see them in our private group, which will be personal, which will be very personal and private, et cetera, but very helpful and helpful for our direction, you make sure you grab them and snatch them in and say, we getting it in this September. So you'll see instructions on how to do that better in our newsletter and also on our other pages. So since I'm stormed in, you'll see me more on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. See y'all. Thank you so much for hanging out this morning. God bless you and goodbye.